Before we can get into the presentation, let me tell you what a tide is first. A tide is the rise and fall of water levels during the day.
This is an artificial ocean we created using my sink. The different water levels within the sink represents the tides. This is the tide pool with fishes within it, and this is the building.
This is a tide. This particular tide is a high tide, which means it is the highest point the tide will reach. This is dangerous because if not taken into account, the water level can reach buildings and other objects. This is the low tide. This is the lowest point the tide will reach. This is dangerous because it will harm the aquatic animals living in the high tides.
We found information about the depth of tides from Vancouver and St. John's. In the end, we decided to use the information from Vancouver because it had a more credible source to create our graph.
The max, or the high tide, is at 0 and 4.69. It is 0 because that is where the data starts, and 4.69 is the height of the high tide. The minimum, or the low tide, is at 7 and 0.7. 7 is the midway or mid through cycle of the tide's 14-hour cycle, and 0.7 is the minimum height or the low tide of the tide.
Using the information, we found out that it takes tides 14 hours to go from the high tides to the low tides and back to the high tides. We also found out the max and min and derived that K equals 26, C equals 2.7, and A equals 2. Using all these information, we created the equation of f of x equals 2 cosine 26x plus 2.7.
And here is our graph. This is the peak, here's the trough, here's the amplitude, and here's the central axis.
Welcome to our map game show. Today our contestants are Mohammed and Brandon. Today our topic is graphs. On my left I have a picture of tides, and here on my right I have a graph that represents the depth of the tides at different times of the day. So our first question is, what does the amplitude represent? Mohammed?
Sinusoidal.
Nice attempt, but that is not the correct answer.
Well,
Brandon?
well, it represents the depths of the tides in correlation to the sea level.
That is the correct answer. Congratulations, Brandon! Alright, now, our second question is, what does the vertical shift represent? Mohammed?
Sun going up and down.
Nice attempt, Mohammed. Brandon?
It represents the sea level.
Congratulations, Brandon, a winner! You won the prize of $1 million! Here's your constellation prize. Oh, thank you. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, my first question is, for every period of the tides, is the amplitude the same?
No, not necessarily. It all depends on the placement of the moon. The placement of the moon affects the gravity pull of the water, therefore making the amplitude in the graph slightly different, but you can get the approximation and we can make the average and get a constant amplitude.
For the second question, why are tides levels sinusoidal?
The tides levels are sinusoidal because they have a repeating pattern which corresponds to the moon's orbit. Moon's orbit takes 24 hours for its cycle to repeat or go back to where it was originally. For tides, although, it takes every 14 hours to go back to make it go back to its original spot, therefore making it sinusoidal.